You're listening to Parasearch Radio with paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web at Parasearch Radio. The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch UK Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the KTPF Reload Show. In case you're wondering what the Reload Show is about, if you haven't heard previous shows, these are the interviews that were conducted by good friends of mine, Steve and Sue Taggart, in the days of the KTPF radio show. Their own radio show ran for just over 4 years, broadcasting every week for over 3 hours. I joined them in the last 18 months of the show's run, but eventually the guys felt they'd just about had enough. It was a monumental effort to keep broadcasting every week for 3 hours. It was a wonderful show. But unfortunately they're no longer involved, and the shows have just sort of sat in the archives, so I thought it would be nice to bring them back to life and bring you the interviews that the guys conducted over those 4 years. They include some of the most interesting people within the world of the paranormal and some not so well known but still, nevertheless still very interesting. We even have 1 or 2 rather unusual shows, including a live seance and other things along those lines. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed tonight's show, and this is the KTPF Reload Show. Enjoy.
This program deals with themes of an adult nature and is intended for a mature audience. They've landed.
You're in the right place. Online, on the web, and on air. All over the world.
Talk radio.
You hear us, we hear you.
Yeah, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. My name's Suzanne.
And I'm Steve.
And you're on the KTPF Community Talk Show. Tonight we're going to be talking to Adam Davies, who is a cryptozoologist, local one to us actually. Right, okay, guys, we're going to get our next guest on, but before we do, I just want to give you a little bit of an introduction to him. Now, for those of you who don't know, cryptozoology comes from the Greek kryptos, which means hidden, and zoology, that literally means study of hidden animals. Okay, and they call it a pseudoscience, and it's involving the search for animals whose existence has not been proven. Now, if you look back into the days of to the days before the gorilla, the giraffe, and things like that, and even the camel, these were animals that were out there that nobody discovered, and now look where we are. We've got these creatures in our normal everyday thing. Now, we've had cryptozoologists on before, but tonight we're going to have Adam Davies on. Now, whether you call him an explorer, an adventurer, or a cryptozoologist, there is nobody alive today who has done more active field work to prove the existence of yet to be discovered animals in remote and sometimes dangerous parts of the world. So we're going to contact him and find out a bit about his last expedition, and what he was looking for, and a
little bit about himself.
Yeah, and about himself. So let's get him on the phone, or on the Skype.
On the Skype would be better.
Yes. So, here we go.
Here he comes.
Hello.
Hi, it's Adam.
Hi, Adam. You all right?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Can you turn your speaker down a little bit or something?
No, he needs to mute the show.
Oh, you mute the show if you can, if you're listening.
I can't. I don't know how to do it, I'm afraid.
Right. Okay, no problem. Right.
If he's on the show, it's just there's a little sound button on there.
I can't hear it
the
now
feed.
anyway, so it's okay. It might have been just as we started up.
Oh.
So, is
Okay.
it too loud for you, Andy? Turn your speakers down, darling. Right, welcome to the show, Adam. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start?
Yeah, sure. I've looked for unknown species for many years. For the last, I think it's probably the last 15 years. I've made documentaries for National Geographic, for the History Channel, and for a number of other organisations. I'm very interested in looking for unknown cryptids. My main reasoning, the thing I'd most like to do is to try and get some scientific evidence of them. So I guess that's my background.
So how did you get into this? Why did you think that it needed to be done?
Well, I don't think it was so much of a need in the first instance. It was more about wanting to. I think the earliest thing was I was fascinated by the Arthur C. Clarke Mysterious Worlds when I was a teenager, and I remember seeing Roy Macaulay on that, and he was going to the Congo, and he was in a hammock going to the Congo, and he was falling out of it. He was in Central Park, and he was falling out of it. And the thing I liked about him was that he was fallible. Yeah, so he wasn't like Sir Reynold Fiennes. I mean, he's a hero, but if you read Sir Reynold Fiennes' stuff, it's like day 52, my toe dropped off and still I held on. And I thought, well, if my toe dropped off, I'd rather be at the pub. It was. I like the fact that he was a bit rubbish. Still had some guts and wanted to do it. So I think that was my earliest aspirations. And then what I decided to do was, I'd always liked animal tracking. I'd done it with my dad since I was very, very little. And so gradually I progressed from there and did expeditions, and then by chance I ended up doing some TV documentaries.
Yeah.
And sort of a mushroom from there, and then I found evidence, and it made newspapers. So it was a gradual mushrooming, and that was how it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the first place you actually visited, and what was you looking for?
I think the first proper thing I ever looked for was many year ago. I was travelling in Sumatra many years ago, and I'd heard stories about the orang pendek, which was the Sumatran jungle primate, and I decided to go up to this lake. I took a guide, and I decided to go up to this lake called Gunung Tuju, where there's been a lot of activity.
Yeah.
And he was a guy called Pat Sullock, and I went and trudged up on my own up there with him, and had a look round, and he basically described how he'd saw two of these creatures fighting, and I was very, very interested in that. So that was the first thing I ever did of any real investigation, and then after that I ended up doing a few more things. I think I went to Norway next, and then did things all over the world, but that was the starting point, and I liked it because it felt very sort of primeval. It felt like a place where something could exist. It's a marvelous place, and you could hear gibbons hooting in the distance as you got up there. So I like the adventure of it, and gradually, as I looked for more things all over the world, I became interested in the rationale behind them, in the sense of what could they be, what were they thinking, how intelligent they are, what could I do to preserve them. So there's all sorts of things evolved, but I think my starting point as a teenager was the adventure of it, the idea of doing those unknown things, and then as time progressed, I went off and did those other things. Yeah.
So take us out there. You fly out. What exactly happens on one of these expeditions? What kind of situations are you actually in?
Well, I think before you even fly out, you have to do a lot of preparation for them, and it wouldn't be just me that would do that. It would, depending on the team I was with. So I've had some very good people over the years who helped me do those things. So there's a lot of preparation before you go, because most of the time you're doing it on your own time and own money. Yeah. So it's really important that you plan it, because through all of these things, I was always deciding, is this thing plausible? Do I want to spend my own time and my own money? Because you're doing it on a shoestring. do I want to spend my own time and own money looking for something? And seeing if it possibly could exist. And so there's that before you go.
Yeah.
And then when you get there, you obviously you're maximising your chances to go and look for it. So a lot of the time, you're trying as hard as you possibly can to try and find those things. And if you get those exciting times, there's been times in very recently in America in June where been on the trail of a possible Bigfoot, which was remarkable, and I'll talk about that later if you'd like me to. But there's also a lot of sitting around when not much is happening when you're looking at bushes.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to say that it's not you suffer a bit, you can get a few cuts and bruises and other things. You can be ill and stuff, but I wouldn't have changed any of those experiences for the world because they were remarkable fun and I enjoyed it.
So I'm assuming that there's no lush hotel or whatever, and what kind of situation are you in with that concern? Are you actually out in the bush, so to speak?
Yeah, totally, completely.
Out with the bugs, Gil. Out with the bugs.
I can't ever remember staying in a lush hotel. I don't think so. I mean, when I did I did a Finding Bigfoot show with Cliff Barrettman, and I sort of teased them because they got this big mansion thing which some general had stayed in, and we were all in this shack down the road. But he came out into the jungle and he worked really hard when we were there. But no, there was never a lush hotel, and I could never afford to do a lush hotel, and I'm kind of glad about that because it gave me experiences that I wouldn't have otherwise had. So I'll give you a specific example. When I was in the Congo looking for something called the Nikila Mwembe, the Congo dinosaur, which was my first inspiration, the one I spoke about as a starting point. I was there sleeping with the Bantu under the stars, and the Bantu tribesmen were all around me, and they put down their spears, and then we all kicked down for the night, and then we headed off to Tele. And it was a wonderful experience. It was extremely dangerous, but it was an amazing experience. And if I'd had loads of money and we'd had a seaplane in and out and set up big habitat camps, then I would have never have had that. No. And I wouldn't have seen half the things I've seen. So, in a way, it's fortuitous. I think, I think the disadvantage of that is because often you're doing it on your own money, you can sometimes think, well, I haven't got a lot of slush funds, so if something goes wrong, I could be seriously screwed here. Yeah. but it hasn't turned out that way for me, and I'm blessed because of it.
So you're literally sleeping under the stars, I assume, like, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here, sort of thing. And you have guys. Well, I'm not a celebrity, don't get me out of here in your place. But I'm assuming you have guides with you, and you have to pay them and what have you.
Yeah, it's very in somewhere like that. I mean, different places, different locales. So in somewhere like that, it's very, very hard. I mean, that was wading through 56 kilometres of swamp jungle up to my waist, and I'm not trying to diss the achievements about the I'm a Celebrity contestants, but worrying about rice and beans at the end of the day was frankly the least of my worries. I would have been grateful for them. I had to eat monkey on one occasion, and two occasions, and it wasn't very pleasant. No. So that the rice and beans would have been a treat. but yeah, you have to pay for local guides, and part of. But I think when you pay for them, when you organise that, it's also important that you have a good rapport with them, and we have a laugh together, and there's a mutual respect fostered, and yeah, but everything. If I'm making a film, obviously they pay for the guides, they'll do all of that and work out that way. But if I'm financing it myself, I'm paying for them myself. And even when I have made films, I've often done a lot of the research and production on them. So I've organised the payment of the guides and organised the film shoot and everything else, or certainly participating in helping organise it. So there's been a lot of that background. And I think that people can often assume that films are made with these type of documentaries are made with vast budgets and money's no option. When in reality, even with the American productions, there's often not a great profit margin on them. So even with those, I don't get paid for them and all. I don't make money off this. If it was a business, it would be the worst business ever. Yeah. Because I would have lost thousands of pounds and got little back. I do it because I enjoy it and because I'm intellectually curious about what these things might be.
Yeah.
There's no motivation to it other than that, really.
No. We've got a couple of things in the chat room for you. Dave Lloyd wants to know, what about the giant skeletons found all over the world? I don't know what that one's about. He's mentioned that one.
Maybe he's wondering if you ever thought about going checking them out.
Yeah, whether you thought about checking them out. Certain country governments have tried to cover up their existence, as it means our whole history is different, he says. I don't know if you know about the giant skeletons at all.
Yeah, I know what he's referring to. There's a number of stories about giant skeletons. Most particularly, there's a story that the Smithsonian concealed giant skeletons. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stories about whether archaeology or recent biology for cryptids has been covered up.
Yeah.
I understand that these things may or may not exist. I've never, to answer his question specifically, I've heard about them, but I've never looked into them as such. And I should do, because I've started to take an interest, and I was reading an article I read the other day. So it's not that I won't, I may well do in the future.
Yeah.
What I can say with some confidence is that when I have worked with government institutions, they have collaborated or helped me. So I've never personally come up with anyone in a government or in different parts of the world who've said, no, I'm not going to help you, or I'm actively going to obstruct you. They, in fact, have actually helped me in a lot of cases. So I think that my own view on that is there can always be rogue individuals or institutions, but I think the idea of a worldwide cover-up is a bit of a stretch for me personally.
Right, the other question that's in the chat room is from the Viscount, is previously, before your last expedition, not including that, because we'll talk about that in a moment, what have you actually found or believe you may have found at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can list them. In Norway, I was part of a team that found we shot video, and we also had a hydrophone. We dropped sonar in, and that was identified by the Marine Research Institute as being an unknown species. In Sumatra, I've been part of teams which have found hair samples, and they've been analysed by other scientists, and they've come to the conclusion that they were unknown primate. And I wrote a paper on that, which was in Scientific Exploration Society, entitled "New Species in Sumatra," new primate species in Sumatra, which people can Google. Mm-hmm. And at the moment, right now, I've got some hair samples from my recent expedition to America, which are currently being tested by a geneticist. And I've worked with a few other geneticists recently, and now I'll talk about that more probably in the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. So the bottom line is I have found things. There was China. I did a film called China's Wild Man on the Yeren, and Jeff Meldrum, the anthropologist who was with me, we were given a print of a Yeren, a Chinese wild man, and he worked with Dr. Zhu from Beijing University, and they published a scientific paper on a new primate, possible new primate. So there's been a lot of science behind some of the stuff I've done, because that's what I'm most interested in, trying to get objective evidence. Can I say that I've definitively proved something? Then no, because I think with all of these things, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. Mm-hmm. And the balance of evidence has to be that much higher for an encrypted than it would be, say, I'm not trying to be derogatory about a new species of frog, but the balance of evidence has to be that much higher. But yeah, I've certainly found evidence which would be, were not encrypted, persuasive to most people.
Yeah, right. And talking about your evidence, how do you get your evidence researched by these geneticists? How much does it cost? Obviously, you have, once you get these samples, you need to give them to somebody, don't you? And again, it's obviously out of your money.
I don't pay for those, fortunately.
Oh, do you not?
No.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've been very blessed by the fact that the people I've worked with have done it for me as a favour. Some of them I've known for a while, And so if I've done a show with them or something else, that they've said, well, I'll test out a sample for you. That's because I think they know I'm not going to send them a bunch of moss.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
If I send them something, I have to satisfy myself and that there's a possibility that something's there. More often than not, it's not going to be, and they're prepared for that too. But if somebody wanted something genetically tested, it can cost over $1,000.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of money. So I have to make sure that the samples that I'm giving them have a reasonable provenance. So I'll describe what's happened. I'll tell them where I found it. I'll document that. I'll do a very short field report, and then I'll test it on that basis. But so, for example, the ones I found in America are being tested by a geneticist right now. But that's because I've known him for a long time. We've worked together, and he knows that I'm not going to send him bull. I might be wrong. In this field, I can say I'm no expert. I'm more likely to be wrong than right. But he knows that I'm not going to blag him and give him a load of rubbish. No. He's got something tangible to work with that he can hopefully extract the DNA from, and then we can learn what it is.
Right, okay. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, okay, Adam, while I just play this jingle, and then we'll come back and find out what's happened in the last exhibition.
Yeah, sure. No worries.
The Paranormal Intelligence Gathering Services Ghost Store is a one-stop shop for all of your ghost hunting gadgetry needs. Run by ghost hunters for ghost hunters, the shop is filled with all of the latest in investigation equipment, shipped in from all around the world, from high-quality digital dictaphones to EMF pumps, infrared illuminators to laser grid pens, CCTV equipment to data loggers. All of our equipment has already been imported, so you can buy it safe in the knowledge that there will be no hidden costs. And with our postage promise, you'll never pay more than the actual postage price. So visit www.the-pigs.co.uk/ghost store.
Yeah, welcome back to the KTPF Community Talk Show. We're keeping it friendly here every Sunday and every day, actually. But tonight we're keeping it friendly with yourselves and our guest, Mr. Adam Davies. Now, Adam, before we go into your last exhibition, one question that's come in is from David Lloyd again. He said, did you ever meet the late Lloyd Pye? And what does he think of, or what do you think of the Starchild skull? He goes on to say that he met him in Liverpool and a couple of years ago, and he felt he was a really nice guy. Did you ever meet him?
No, I've heard he is. I've heard he is a nice guy. Mm-hmm. And again, I've not researched the historic anatomy of some of these cryptids, probably to the same way as David Lloyd from the sounds of it. I am interested in it. I mean, obviously, to set the scene, obviously, that's a very long, elongated skull. It's been found in South America, and there's a number of pictures of it. I would say that the one thing I'd say about all these things from when I started to now is that research and genetic research has improved exponentially. So, speaking to some of the leading geneticists, even in the last 2 years, the ability to stop human contamination has almost been eradicated now, which is marvellous news, because the biggest thing that I had historically was, it could have been contaminated, it could have been human, it could have been this. But these days, that is much less. So I think the answer to your question is yes, I'm interested in it. No, I haven't met him. But now I think it would be worthy of even more research because I mean, I remember with one of the skulls that was found in Russia with Zana, that I think initially it was just dismissed, but even very recently Brian Sykes, for example, said, well, this could be an unknown derivative of hominid, and that's with improved genetic knowledge when it was first analysed to, I think, in 2008 to even now. So I think there's a lot of progress, and those things are so unusual. I would test them again.
Right, okay. Well, if you're interested in the Starchild, people in the chat room, we will have Amy Vickers talking to us at the later part of October. But back to tonight and Adam Davies. Now, Adam, as you say, you've been on an exhibition recently and to the US. Can you tell us a bit about that then?
Yeah, sure. Well, what I was interested in, I've been to I've been to the Cascades and done some research there in North America, in the Pacific Northwest. And when I was there, I'd heard a specific Bigfoot type grunt, for want of a better word. I'm assuming it's Bigfoot. This is an assumption on my part. I can't definitively prove that. But it was very ape-like, and it reminded me of some of the primates I'd heard in other areas like the Congo and Sumatra in India. And I was extremely interested in whether I could find out more and pursue more evidence around that. So I settled on 3 particular locations. I went first of all to what's called the Olympic Project, which is run by a very nice guy called Derek Randalls, which is not far from, it's all called the Olympic Peninsula, but it's around the Seattle area. And then I went to Oregon to spend some time with a guy called Matthew Johnson, who spent 8 years allegedly habituating a Bigfoot group. And that was alleged. That was my view at the time. And then I went on to California to spend some time with Bart Patino and Justin Sneha. Justin claiming to have killed a Bigfoot, and there's a lot of controversy about that for all sorts of obvious reasons. So I think, you know, I'll tell you in turn about the different things, if you like, and what I learned.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing at the Olympic Project, I had a great success. I was really fortunate. When I got there, I met Jeff Meldrum, who I've worked with before, the anthropologist. Had a good time, chilled out, and then together with my friend John Carlson, I met up with a few other people, Shane Corson, Shelley Covington, Montana, but also some people I didn't know, and we decided to do a night trek. Now, we did this trek, and I chose to go to an area towards a lake where there had been the highest concentrations of potential big sightings. As we wandered along, I saw some debris coming down from a slope. There was no wind, so there was no reason why this debris would come down. Now, there was a line of trees up on this slope, which was risen, but what I realised was that it would make a perfect observational post if you were looking down. And I decided to emit the same grunt as I'd emitted, or heard emit, in the Cascades. And I got a sharp grunt back, and it stunned everybody. I mean, some of these people we'd never met before, and it was amazing. So I decided to repeat the experiment and moved a little bit farther on, trying to demonstrate a sort of alpha male behaviour. And I got another grunt again. And then I got a higher pitched grunt from the other side, and I don't want to be too close, but I then urinated to sort of display this alpha male behaviour, and the thing went really grunted very, very loudly. And it was great. Now, what Shane did the next day was he had placed a recorder there, a sound recording device, and the next night he went back to collect that, and there were ape-like grunts on the recorder, which was fascinating, fascinating. And we were all really thrilled by that. It was, you know, and I know that since then Derek has been back and he's got to that area and has also emulated that experiment. So he's made grunts and he's got grunts back in that specific locale. And according to his background knowledge, that's a place where he's been working quite a lot historically. He, on the same night above us, because he was at his group were at a higher elevation, we were at the lower elevation, he had got wood knocks. And what I did the next day was I took a group out and we gathered some hair samples. And it's always a long shot, you know, because you always think, oh, well, more likely to be a deer or anything else that's knocking around. But because there were hairs gathered, because it was hairs where we'd had this specific incident and it was witnessed by a number of people, some of whom which I had never met before or didn't know, and then they were able to repeat the experiment and we were able to get a recording, that's when the hairs become worthy of analysis, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So because there's a lot of corroborating background data, so they're being tested at the moment by a geneticist. So I was really pleased with that trip. It was great.
So you don't think it could have been a bear or something grunting back at you?
No, I don't think so. And the guys who were with me, who are very familiar with that locale, there's some very good trackers and people who are very well known, you know, spend a lot of time in that area. They don't think so either. But do I know it? Do I know definitively? No, I don't know definitively. So could it possibly have been a bear? Yes, but I think that's extremely unlikely. based on everybody else's experiences, that also based on the recordings that I heard subsequently, which did appear, or appeared to me, and to those people when we played them back, to sound very ape-like.
Yeah.
So I was really pleased. You can never be sure, because it's, you know, what's definitive scientific evidence is something like DNA, which is much more difficult. You know, you can analyse that and sequence it and say, well, this is what it is. A sound recording, just like a photo, is always open to objective scrutiny of people's opinions.
Yeah.
But it was certainly something tangible that's worthy of future experiments, and Derek's carrying on doing that research. He runs the project, so he'll carry on doing it, and I'm great. I'm very happy.
Steve?
Yeah, there's a technical expert who they have there, who's a sound recordist called David Ellis, and he's been doing all that work on it. So he's going through all his sandbags of data, and he did all of that virtually straight away. They have a team of experts there who specialise in different things. So Derek does a lot of the tracking. David, for example, does a lot of the sound and sound expertise, and Shane does as well. And also there's a guy, Tom Baker, who does a lot of the extrapolation of data to show where Bigfoots might be more prevalent in their activity. So there's a massive project there. I'm just making a small contribution. But my contribution, hopefully, was very useful to him. So we'll see, we'll see what happens.
So is it possible that, excuse my ignorance, you're the expert here.
I'm not an expert, I'm just
But is it possible that maybe there's some sort of deformed creature out there that could possibly be could have some sort of bipedal manner?
Well, in that area, there's been a lot of the reason the Olympic project was set up in that specific location was because there's been a lot of Bigfoot activity there, and then Derek's had results with thermal imaging in that area historically. So I'm going to an area where there's a higher concentration of Bigfoot activity, and looking for further evidence. So you never know. It would be unlikely that it was one specific creature, and on the recording that Shane did, it seemed like there were two, one communicating with the other. And as I said, when I was there and with these people who are independent witnesses, we clearly heard two grunts from two different creatures, because one was on one side and one was on the other. Yeah. And so I think that it being a lone creature is probably the most improbable of the potential scenarios.
Now, the story of the Bigfoot has been going on for years.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think how far back it's been going. Perhaps you'll know more than me. But do you think that obviously there's you need to think about their reproduction? How are they doing this? There's got to be more than one, isn't there?
Yeah, there'll be different populations, and I think that they're probably a little bit more common than has previously been assumed. I dare to guess how many there are. I wouldn't have a clue, and I think that if I was to speculate that and put a figure on it, I would be wrong.
Yeah.
But I think from my own experience, I think I've been there. What is it, 4 times, something like that, in the last few years. I think that they're more common than is previously supposed. But I also think, and I was speaking about this with Barcatino, there's still vast tracts of that area of the US which are still forest. But that is being eradicated more and more, and often the sightings of Bigfoot are quite near population areas. You don't have to trek days and days in the wilderness to have an encounter. It can be quite near. It can be quite near a road or a campsite or whatever else. It's quite surprising, really. Yeah. So I think that they're more common than previously thought. Yeah. I think that the thing that most interests me about Bigfoot is just how bright they are, because they seem to be far more intelligent than anything else I've ever looked at.
Steve?
Well, in some ways they'll be related to us because we'll all be hominids of a type. I think the question is really how how close we are to them, how genetically close we are to them, and what level of sentience they do have. I mean, when I wrote my paper on the orangutan deck, I postulated a theory of parallel evolution with a pygmy orangutan that had evolved to walk bipedally. The biggest question, the biggest question I want answered about Bigfoot, to encapsulate your point, is just what it is and what level of sentience, intelligence it has. Because it seems to be remarkably intelligent, and it seems, certainly when I went to Oregon with Matthew, that it seems to have a level of language skills which are remarkable, and I was really surprised at that. So I'd love to know. I hope we get some answers soon. It's certainly possible. I really would love to know. If anything I've ever looked for, that's the question I most want answered.
Steve,
And
just for the
I was just about to
reiterate
that, because I turned my mic off when you did the thing earlier, and because I hadn't answered the question, I forgot to turn it back on again. The question I asked Adam was, does he think that A, they are related to us, and B, about the theory that the gene pool split and one ended up with us and the other ended up with what we now call Bigfoot.
And you had your answer.
And there was the answer.
Now the Viscount's asking, do you think it's possible that the Bigfoot is mating with bears?
No. I can't see how a bear and a Bigfoot would mate and it would reproduce.
They don't really, the genes...
No, species don't usually crossbreed. I mean, you'll end up with things like the quagga because you got the zebra, and it's basically the same species.
Yeah.
But you don't usually get cross species.
They wouldn't be able to, bluntly speaking, they wouldn't be able to fertilise one another.
No.
So I don't think that's a possibility at all. I think that with Bigfoot, they're far more likely to be, as Steve said, more closely related to us in some capacity than they are to be, say, a bear or anything else that's knocking around. They are extremely bright. I mean, you could tell, for example, with Shane's recorder, it seemed to us that it was looking for it as a technical device. And when I went to Oregon, as I say, that it seemed very clearly that the Bigfoots there had a language, which was very fascinating. I don't fully understand it, and I don't think I would if I spent 20 years trying to study it. I think it'll be something that will happen in the future. But they are on a whole level of sentience much greater than any of the other species that are around. Way beyond.
Yeah, the Viscount is asking that maybe would they mate with apes?
Say again?
Could they mate with apes?
Well, it's possible. I mean, we don't understand their genetic composition.
Yeah.
So that's it. But the question would be, in North America, well, what other apes would they mate with? Because there are supposed to be no apes in North America. So, by the same token, so what would they crossbreed with? They can only breed with each other or with us potentially, and that would be it.
I take it the Bigfoot in America is synonymous as we had with the Loch Ness Monster. Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of myth. I mean, I've looked for the Loch Ness Monster myself, but I mean, there's a lot of. It's something that it's in their community. It's something that they very passionately believe in.
Yeah.
Those people there, and they have very differing views. So, I mean, it's a very good question then. So, let me give you a specific example of the 3 places I went to. So Derek's team are researchers, and they follow their methodology is tracking, setting out trail cameras, extrapolating data in that respect. The next place I went to with Matthew Johnson, he's what would be described as a habituator. So his methodology is that he would say, well, if he were here, he'd say, well, I've spent 8 years researching a Bigfoot family in Oregon, in his secret research area, and my methodology there is to build their trust, to put out food for them, to interact with them. So he plays music, he tries to build a relationship with them on that basis. And there's not much crossover between the two different methodologies. Again, in California, when I was with Bart and Justin, their methodology is very much that of a researcher, but Justin would like to shoot one. So there's different methodology, and the different groups do not always see eye to eye. I don't mind that, I don't agree with killing a Bigfoot, but in terms of research, aside from that, I'm not bothered what people's methodology is. I'm more interested in getting the results. That's what I'm after, because I want evidence that can be independently scientifically scrutinised. And on a personal level, I got on with all of them. I really like Derek and all his team. They were great. Matthew and Cynthia, his wife, were lovely with me. And although I don't agree with Justin's views, on a personal level, we got on great, and I got on great with Bart and Roger and all the other people that were there. So I'm not going to say that one method's right and one method's wrong. I'm interested in the research and the data that you can get. Yeah. I think when I went to Oregon, it became clear to me that with Matthew's research area, I was of the opinion that he was interacting with Bigfoots. Many people who would disagree with me on that basis, but I'm saying it as I felt it at the time. And again, I got hair samples from that area, and those samples are being tested as we speak. They were being tested last week, and they're being tested on further revisions this week. And I know that for a fact, because I've corresponded with the geneticist who is testing them. And any evidence that I find as a result of Derek and his team's hard work, and Matthew and his hard work, and together with John Carson, who came with me, will be published, will be available for scrutiny. Whether it's news that I want to hear, which would be wonderful, or news that it's something else, like it's a bear or it's a dog or whatever else, which is always more likely because of cross-contamination. So I think in this field you prepare for bad news, because that's it. When I sent a message to geneticist who's testing the other day, I said, should I put the champagne on ice, or should I carry on drinking the water? We have a joke about it. so we'll see. But you will hear about that. And a culmination of all my work, because obviously I'm getting very close to finishing a book on my 5 years of adventures called Man Beasts, and I'll let you know when that's coming out soon. So all of the data that I've gathered is always independently and objectively scrutinised. But it's all the results that will be transparent. So I would imagine when it does come out, there'll be a lot of discussion about it in the Bigfoot community. They'll want to know what's happened, and they'll be very interested in the results, because we have extracted DNA, and we'll see what those results come up with.
Yeah, considering they're very intelligent beings, why do you think we're not finding bodies of the ones that are older and dying? Do you think they're burying their dead, or could there be an elephant's graveyard type thing somewhere?
This is a good question. I would imagine that they bury their dead. Also, their corpses don't stay in the forest very, very long. It's very rare, for example, as a hunter would say, to find a bear skeleton and stuff like that. But the simple answer is I don't know. I am sure that they exist. I'm sure that they exist. I've had a number of specific encounters which I will be able to document very shortly. I've just been given permission to do that. So I'll be able to talk about some of the things that I've had to keep stum about now for nearly 2 years, I think. A long time, 18 months it is, over some of the science that I've been involved in. But there is some pretty remarkable science coming out very shortly. So I'll be able to answer your question, I think, a bit better when I've got permission to do that, and certainly in the next few weeks. So hopefully you'll enjoy hearing about it. But I mean, there's lots of articles you can read where people say, well, why haven't Bigfoot bodies been found? I mean, Cliff Barrett, who I'm good friends with, wrote a long article on this. But the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know because they've not been proved to science. I think, when let's hope the DNA evidence comes out that Bigfoot exists, what I'm hoping is that will be the tipping point, which will cause a major scientific project, so that anthropology can be studied in a lot more detail by a lot of respected and credible people. I know my limits. I do this in my spare time. I do it because I passionately believe in it, but I'm not got a field of. I've got academics who work with me. I'm very fortunate to have that. But it really needs a major scientific project, not just people doing it in their spare time like me. And hopefully, if we get DNA, that would be what happens, and that would be the high watermark for me.
Yeah, the Viscounts asked, why do you think they stay so elusive, considering their intelligence and that? Personally, I think because the ones in America are probably going to get shot at. But what would you say to that?
Well, I think you answered the question. I think that they know that very simply put, they know men carry guns. And they certainly do in America. In those areas, there's a lot of hunters, and I think it's in their interest to keep away from them. They're much more. The ones I've dealt with when I've been in ones and twos, they've been more forward. But when you've been in a group, they've been much more distant. And I think that it's just not. I think that they're very, very elusive. They're remarkable. I mean, I was never particularly interested in looking for Bigfoot really until 2008. Till I did a film called China's Wild Man with Jeff Meldrum when he showed me the Patterson Gimlin film, which allegedly shows Patty a walking Bigfoot. But I spent a long time doing anything else but, because I sort of thought, well, how can this possibly exist when there are so many people in America who go out looking for these things, and some of them are very, very good trackers. I've met some. They're brilliant. Derek's brilliant. But I think it's really because they are just so damn good and clever at what they do, and they manage to avoid it. But they're fallible. I mean, sooner or later, someone's going to shoot one, or someone's going to hit one by a car or something like that. Eventually, it would happen. And as human encroachment goes through those forests, it's going to happen sooner or later. And I'd rather it happen as a result of a scientific initiative getting DNA rather than somebody bloody shooting one. Because I personally think that would be a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have a good track record with other species.
No, we don't, and that would be a concern. And you only see that with historically, with our interactions with tribal peoples. Hopefully, these days we will have learned our lesson to a degree, but you can't be sure.
Yeah, I mean, people believe that aliens exist without any real proof, as the Viscount said.
Yeah.
What's the possibility that these Bigfoot are actually aliens?
Well, I don't believe that they're aliens. I mean, in the sense aliens as in come from another planet or something like that. I don't believe that. I think that they're indigenous to. They talk about Bigfoot. It's indigenous to to North America. It displays a level of sophistication of tool use, for example, which is certainly bright, but it wouldn't have the technological level that would indicate it's got a superior cultural technological sophistication to us. So it wouldn't be able to leave this country or this world and fly off in a spaceship. I think that's just fanciful. I think that they are intelligent, but I don't think that they are aliens. No.
I mean, the reason I ask is because whenever there's a UFO report in the same area, we tend to get reports of other things like Bigfoot and Chupacabra and stuff like that, and other paranormal activity. All seems to happen in the same area as when you get a UFO report.
And I understand that, and I've never really explored the paranormal element to it, but I do know that with Bigfoot particularly, there's been a paranormal dimension, and I'm not dismissing a paranormal dimension. I think I can fairly dismiss the alien thing. If I'm wrong, then so be it. I don't mind being wrong. Yeah. But I understand what you mean, because often weird things can happen around these particular areas. But again, I don't understand that. The best I can do is try and get tangible physical evidence for it. And if I experience anything of a paranormal nature, then I will be fascinated by it. Yeah. It's not that I'm closed-minded about it. It's just that my focus is about getting tangible physical evidence. But I wouldn't know. You lot all would know far more about paranormal things than I would. You've got far more experience with those sort of things than I have. Yeah. So I think it's fair to say I'd be out of my depth at speculating about paranormal things. Yeah. Maybe we should talk about that another time.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I hope that they are native to this planet, so to speak. It could just be that they're so in tune with the planet and that they pick up on these things when they happen.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have. They certainly have superior capacities in some respects. It was quite clear to me that they have, for example, superior hearing to us, superior night vision to us. They have a social sophistication and structure. They have a language. But I haven't been persuaded that they have a superior technological capability. They may have superior senses, such as the ones that you attribute to paranormal, in some capacity. I wouldn't say that was plausible or not plausible. I just say I don't know. But I'd like to know. I'd like to know more than anything. These sort of questions intrigue me, and I'll probably be speculating these for the rest of my life, as will all of us, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, it may sound a bit silly, but the thing that made me want to know more about Bigfoot was Harry and the Hendersons kind of thing. I kind of hope it's that kind of character, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't think all of them are friendly necessarily. In fact, I know that they're not, but most of them are quite shy and elusive. But there are some aggressive ones. So I don't think all of them would be a Harry. Some of them you wouldn't want in your house.
There has been talk of paranormal communities, Bigfoot communities, and like the Viscount's asking there, do you think that they have them, and that those that are being spotted are just like out spotting, so to speak?
I certainly think that they have social groups. I mean, when and I've seen evidence of that when I've come across what appears to be clan structures. I mean, some of it's supposition on my part. I haven't sat down and seen them socially interacting. But yes, I think that they have groups. I think that they have social structures that would be consistent with other primate behaviour. I mean, the orang's quite solitary, the orangutan, but most primates live in social groups with hierarchies. So it would be reasonable to extrapolate from that Bigfoot would do the same. But yes, I think that there are rogues, and particularly rogue males, and they would be the most aggressive of the lot.
Yeah. Well, what would you say during your exhibitions? What would you say was the best piece of evidence you have to date?
I think it depends. I think on the footprints, I'd cite the paper from China, where you know, it was an international scientific paper, and the Beijing Museum of Natural History. So I think that was a great piece of evidence, and that was certainly a world first. I like the Sumatra stuff. We've come some good evidence of that in the past, and right now I'm almost a little bit excited about the evidence that's pending. Yeah. I certainly hope that something would come up about that, but I'm always cautious.
Is there somewhere you haven't been yet, and would want? And what would you be looking for?
I'm interested in going to South America, look for the giant sloth. I've always been interested in that. I'm interested in going to some of the remoter Pacific islands to explore hominid stories there as well. There's always places I want to go. You know, it's always a question of time and money. That's always the thing with me. It's always like, what can I reasonably afford to do with the cash I've got? It's never enough.
I don't know. But if there was one cryptoid that you would like to find, what would it be?
It would be Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
It would be Bigfoot, because that's the one I'm most fascinated in because of its intellect level. I would love to prove Bigfoot exists. So it's not about me proving it. There's no ego thing. In fact, I don't mind if any of these things are proved by anybody who's doing this research. I really don't mind. I'd be delighted if I hear that somebody's proved one of the things. Don't mind who it is. I'll be just so pleased. Pleased for them and pleased for us, because it's great news for all of us. I'll be delighted. But if you're asking me what I personally like to prove, I would personally like to prove Bigfoot.
And talking about Bigfoot, what would you think would happen if we did prove it and it become a mainstream animal? What would happen? Do you think, like the gorilla and the giraffe?
You got people going out hunting them, probably.
Well, the worry is that they would go out hunting them, and I think that's certainly true. What I would hope is, and I discussed this with a couple of geneticists that I've been working with, I talked about it earlier. What I would hope is that things run positively, and it would prove to be the tipping point in terms of organising a concerted and considerable scientific body of research with really good academics from all different fields going together and properly studying it. That's what I would hope. Yeah? There's always going to be people with guns who go out and hunt things, but they've not been successful so far. No. So I don't see why they would be in the future. What I would hope is that really, if we narrowed it down to a specific locale, then that would be the project that was worked on in that area. And that was what I would hope. And that would have to be done with a lot of tenacity and a lot of privacy. Yeah. So we've talked about how that might work, and that's certainly possible. There would be, I know for a fact that if that happened, there would be a will to do that. I know that.
It's one thing you have to think about, isn't it? Because you know, if you find these animals and you're basically intruding on their environment, aren't you? Really, and it's what they're, how they would react towards you, basically doing that. It's the same with like even UFOs. If you found an alien, we're going to grab it and experiment on it or something. But you've got to think of the animal itself, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's still an animal.
Well, that would absolutely, but that would be why I want a concerted, scientific, holistic approach rather than a couple of people in chem suits. But as I say, having spoken to people who are well known in the scientific community, then I am confident that would be produced, because there would be a will, and I've been assured that there would be a will to do that. In fact, I know that there would be a will to do that if we got the DNA. I'm not. It's not an opinion of mine. It's something that I feel confident enough to state with facts.
Yeah, I mean, from a personal point of view, I would hope there would be made a protected species straight away, at least until we know more about them.
I can tell you that there would be. Yeah. Sure. Again, I'm sure of that.
I mean, Sue said about them actually being an animal. Do you think they'd actually be classed as an animal?
Well, they'd be given a scientific name, and they'd be and that would be a classification in the same way that we would be animals in terms of the species. They would also be protected. I think there'd be a lot of big questions, and there'd be a lot of big questions for government institutions, and for example, in America, there'd be a lot of big questions for wildlife and fisheries who would deal with that. The wildlife and fisheries are prepared for that.
Well, thanks a lot, Adam. It's been great talking to you.
No, it's all right. It's my pleasure.
And we've really enjoyed the conversation. I've
enjoyed it too. It's lovely to speak to people.
Yeah, it's really good to have you back on the show again, and a more in-depth conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you will come back on and give us any updates or whatever.
Yeah, well, I can say with an absolute certainty that there'll be some interesting news released soon, which you will like. So I'll tell you about that when it happens.
Okay then, Adam. Well, thanks again, mate, and take care. And say, one day you might just pop round the corner with us.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll have to do that. It's not far away. I'll have to do.
Okay, pop round for a coffee sometime.
Will do. Thank you.
All right, I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
See you later. Bye.
Bye, Adam.
Bye.
Adam Davies, what a lovely conversation that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, great. I enjoyed that.
I enjoyed that. People, and I must admit, people go on and say, well, it's not ghost, it's not this, that, and the other. But there's more out there than we actually, know about.
It is. I mean, of course, until it's actually found or they come up with a body or something, it's still sort of cryptid, unknown.
Yeah.
Hence paranormal. But I'm personally getting to the point where I don't think Bigfoot is paranormal anymore.
Well, no, because if you think about John Downes, if you think about it, right, when it comes to cryptids, they don't feel as though they come under the paranormal banner.
No.
It's another science that that's a branch off of it, and they don't feel as though it comes under the paranormal regime.
It's only paranormal because
it's unknown.
It's unknown at this point. I mean, they know it exists.
Yeah.
Because they're finding footprints and everything else.
Yeah.
But it's actually until they actually come up with DNA proof or an actual physical specimen. It still comes under the paranormal banner.
Oh, this is it.
I mean, I hate to say it, but I think, despite what Adam said, if the moment they prove that it exists, i.e. probably through DNA,
there'd be another duck hunt, stag hunt.
They would have. They would have to put protection in straight away. But I think the government itself will be able to trap one, so they could observe it close up.
Yeah.
And that would be a big mistake.
It would really, because, like I said, you're approaching on their environment.
Yeah, and not just that, you're talking about a creature that's wild and free.
Yeah.
And you're going to stick it in a cage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just not right.
No, this is it.
Unfortunately, unless you can get their trust and actually be up with them, and like Fossey did with the mountain gorilla, unless you can get that kind of rapport with them, it's not going to happen.
No. So,
but there you go.
Well, that was tonight's special guest, and as I say, we really enjoyed that. So until next time, all that's left to say is keep the paranormal friendly. Good night and God bless.
Good night, guys. Have a good night.
Hello, Harry Price here. Good evening. If there's nothing myself and everybody else enjoy here on the other side more is the sit back and relax and listen to Parasearch Radio with its paranormal news, views and reviews from across the UK and beyond. Make sure to find out more about them on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web, whatever they are, to keep up to date with all their broadcasts throughout the week. And I hope you enjoy them as much as we do over here. Hello? Is anybody there?